All right, today on the show, we have Darrin DeSilva from Realty One in Tracy, California, and also Central Valley. Let me tell you a little bit more about Darrin. Darrin grew up in Pleasanton, California, and he moved around a lot throughout his childhood around Northern California. He ended up landing in Tracy, California, and then there he became homeless at 22 years old and really thinking maybe his life was coming to an end. But from there, he was able, of course, to turn his life around with help. And he received his first opportunity to do sales with Kirby Vacuums. From there, he moved up to car sales and eventually into real estate, which is where he is today. And it was the best decision he ever made. And recently, in the last couple of months, Darrin was just awarded the National Association of Realtors 30 under 30 class of 2022, which is an incredible accomplishment because like thousands of people apply for it and they only give it to 30 people every year. So a huge congratulations to Darrin. And please check out his website, which is DeSilva Real Estate, and that's DESILVA realestate.com, DeSilvaRealestate.com. Also, please follow him on Instagram, which is Darrin, which is DARRIN _ DeSilva. Both of those links will be in the show notes. So Darrin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a real honor to even be asked to be on the show, let alone have somebody interested in my life and kind of the things that have led me up to this point. So I'm grateful and I appreciate you guys, reaching out to me.
I have always thought that gratitude is one of those, well, now it's talked about a lot. I feel it's kind of more commonly discussed, but I love that gratitude seems to be a really present for you. I've noticed that just in our interactions, even before we started. I think humility, it goes a long way in this industry as well, where there's so many people who, kind of go the other way with entitlement and things
Absolutely.
like that. So I am absolutely excited to hear your story. Let's start at the beginning. So tell me about sort of growing up and then how you ended up. We mentioned that, at one point you were homeless in your early 20s. Would love to sort of hear the circumstances there and then how you got out of that situation, because of course a lot of people don't. So I would love to hear, what got you there and then what got you out.
Yeah. So, I appreciate, you recognizing the way I am and interacting with you now, being grateful and everything like that. Honestly, though, that's not me at the core, right, of who I am. Those types of characteristics were beaten into me with pain and suffering and things like that I've gone through in life. Unfortunately, but fortunately today, I can say that that's what has molded me into the person that I am today and the person that I'm working on becoming as I continue to go through life, just like all of us,
Sure.
So for me, I lived in a household with a single mother. She did the best she could. She had a lot of outside issues and things like that, addictions and that sort of thing. And my father, same thing. He was an alcoholic growing up. He would be one way on one day, the best father another day, and you never know what you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of my upbringing, is just real instability, real craziness, but that's what I was used to. That was my normal. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have these weird parents. It was that's just life, at an early age. So fast forward, my first encounter with for me, I was a rebellious teenager. I was never told no by my mother, never really forced to be given responsibility and held accountable for my actions. I always was able to kind of manipulate and things like that. These are things that I learned from my parents,
Sure.
And I was able to do it as a small kid. This is a child doing these things, 11, 12, 13. So at an early age, I was actually sent to a wilderness camp
One of these sort of we're going to get you in line, teach you skills that you're not learning at home kind of thing.
Right, exactly. It was like basically, like your Bear Grylls, right? And out in the middle of Bend, Oregon, which is where I was.
Right.
And
I feel like a lot of those organizations are out in Oregon. They're like,
yeah,
send your kids out here. We'll fix them.
right, exactly.
So
Oregon's the place.
they basically taught you survival skills,
Yes.
as well as working together with others. I'm guessing a lot of interpersonal skills as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And looking back, it was one of the best experiences I think I had. Um, it was funny, the way that they got me is me and my friend were actually staying in our place. We were in Pleasanton, California. I was living at the time in the East Bay area, and we were sleeping, and we got woken up by four people in black suits. It was dead middle of the night. They came up to our room. They said, "Get up, we're going."
Both of you.
Both of us. Yeah, our parents were in on it, by the way. Yeah, they were in on it. They got a package.
They're like, "Why don't you hang out with your buddy tonight?"
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was funny. Amazing. So they were in on it, and we were like, "What's going on?" We walked away downstairs, and we were transported to Bend, Oregon. From that point, we were given to this band of people that you could smell from a mile away. And they threw us in a car, blindfolded us, and we were taken out to the middle of nowhere, driven about 2 hours. They drove on dirt roads, driving in circles, so we couldn't count the directions we were driving.
Wow.
And till eventually we were in the desert of Oregon, which at that point I didn't know, there was a desert in Oregon. My interpretation of a desert was like dry and sand, not knee-deep snow and sagebush for hundreds of miles. So and then we were separated at that point. And then we were there for 2 months. 2 months we were there, and like you said, we had to learn survival skills. I had to make fire from sticks using like a bow drill, and we'd have to ration our food. We would, all we slept under was a sleeping bag and just a tarp that was just a square sheet. That's it. But it was really cool. It was like a Native American based program.
Sure.
And after a certain period of time, they give you like a name, like a Native American name. So it was really cool. It was like a badge of honor, and for me, it was cool. They did like this ceremony when I left that they had never done for anyone before. Cause you also become kind of like a leader with the people underneath you too, the kids coming in after you. And so that was kind of, I feel like, one of my first experiences having to kind of be some type of leader. And it felt good to be able, I got a lot of fulfillment, having to try to help other people and guide them and you know what I mean? So looking back at that, I think that's where that started for me, is just finding that what makes me feel fulfilled in life is that.
And then then where did you go from there? So you went to sort of the middle of nowhere, Oregon. I think I've actually interviewed. I know I've done at least one interview from a top realtor in Bend, Oregon, but not anyone who's had that experience. So you
right? They don't do real estate in the desert out that way. Yeah.
Well, maybe they do, but probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
But so you were there for 2 months. You learned not only sort of individual skills about how to be responsible and disciplined and all of that, but then it's like, oh, by the way, now you're in a leadership position of sorts, and now you can help others, not just helping yourself. So if you really think about, not you, but if our audience really thinks about it, like, what an amazing, obviously a lot of pain associated with getting to that place, but what an amazing experience for somebody to have. And cheers to your family for making that happen. That is really remarkable that enough people loved you to want to see you succeed. And so you came back from that, and then where did you go?
Then I didn't have a plan. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have structure, but we pulled what we like to call a geographical, and we moved from Pleasanton, California, to a little cow town in the Central Valley called Newman, which had about 10,000 people. So we went from the Bay Area, the
Right.
East Bay, growing up, going to San Francisco, riding BART. I mean, all the, San Jose, going to this little cow town in nowhere. It's about, I would say, about an hour and a half from where I was.
So why? What was the thought process? If I want to go to the smaller community, what was the reasoning?
My grandparents lived there at the time. So my mom, yeah, that was yeah. It wasn't just some random town. It was more because my grandparents had been living there, and
Sure.
my mother, wanted to live closer to them. She felt like there was some support there, and I think that was her reasoning. But from there, I didn't know anybody, and just kind of jump back to what I do best and how I met people at the time. And that's, finding the not so good people, if you know what I mean, people that get into trouble, people that, have other issues, addictions, things like that.
Sure.
That's kind of, the story of my adolescence.
So you fell back into some older habits.
Correct. Yeah.
You had more skills now, so that's good. But again, it doesn't
can make a fire if they needed it. Right.
That's true. And also some leadership skills too, which obviously exist beyond. I mean, it's funny. It's like, look, people have these major experiences like you did out in the Pacific Northwest desert. And you had a lot of success there, but then you go back to the real world and it's not like, well, everything's magically fixed, right? Like life is still a lot of ups and downs. So the journey doesn't stop. And as somebody who has had addiction in my history as well, I can absolutely, understand a lot of what you're talking about. So you fell back in with some people that maybe weren't the best, most positive influences. You maybe fell into some old habits, and then sort of what happened.
Yeah. So, I got plugged in with the wrong people, and we were in Newman, I want to say 6 or 7 years. And through that time period, I definitely got worse and worse and worse. Me personally, I've faced addiction, alcoholism. I was screwed from the moment I was born because I got it all in my family, right? So
totally.
Yeah. So I think
I'm only laughing because I thankfully my parents don't have it. Thank goodness. And my sister doesn't, but many other people in my family do. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
I was born with it as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and it is a genetic and it is a disease, and there's a lot that can be said about that, especially when you're going through it, you have more of an understanding. It's something that's very hard to understand if you don't have it. Like when I talk to my girlfriend about it, she's like, huh, what? So it's very, like, it just doesn't process. Right. So, and that's okay. And that's why we have, people that do understand, and, there's resources for people to find others who get that, and that's, yeah.
I just wanted to interject with my most, I think this is such a interesting and funny thought that maybe for the rest of our audience who isn't, doesn't have to deal with family members with addiction or addiction themselves. The best way I can explain addiction in one sentence, and this is, I'm sure I heard this somewhere, is it's considered a medical disease. So it is not a psychological disease. It's an actual medical disease, acknowledged by the American Medical Association as an actual medical disease without a medical solution. Without a medical, there is no prescription. There is no medical solution to a medical problem. And that is incredibly unique for this type of disease. It is actually a disease. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point because that makes treatment incredibly difficult. So people with addiction, if you haven't been through it, or if you have family members that have it, you certainly know how tough it can be. But I always think, a lot of times people think it's more of a willpower issue, and it's almost never willpower in my experience. But anyway, sorry, I
Absolutely.
didn't mean to relate you, but I just wanted to make a
No,
point.
I
Is that
appreciate that.
there's
Yeah.
no solution to what you and I have, and there's no way out of it other than learning how to cope with it and learning how to coexist with it. So I just wanted to make a big point, because everybody listening knows at least one person who's struggling with addiction. So something to think about. But I apologize. Go right ahead into your
Yeah,
story.
no, absolutely. And I'm glad you shared that, because, it's something, that for me, I can't help but be passionate about, because what allowed me to have the life I have today is because I followed people who for some reason did find a solution.
Yeah.
And all I did, just like with real estate, just like with the gym, doesn't matter, right? I have a coach for real estate. I have a trainer for the gym. I have a sponsor for recovery, things like that,
yeah,
right?
sure.
So it's just, for me, it's the same. It's just finding people who have what you want and doing what they're doing, right?
And also surrendering your own your own sort of identity, in a sense, and not in a bad way, in a really positive way, surrendering your own need for control to say, there's certain things I just don't do well, or I don't know how to do, but this person over here does it, and I'm going to figure out what they're doing, and I'm going to hang with them. Whether it's a personal trainer, a recovery coach, AA, or or a medical doctor, whatever it is, you know that you can't always manage everything yourself. And I think that lesson is so important. And most people don't ever get to a place where you were at, where things were really bad. And you sort of were like, okay, I give up, I surrender, help, I need help. I think that is, it's very painful, but it's also a real gift, because it allows you then to say, who can help me? And then you found those people.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about all of this is I can apply this to my real estate business. And frankly, I believe, in my opinion, why I have the life I do today and why I have the career I have is because I have learned these same principles that I can apply to my business. And it's the same thing. And that's why I think it's been so easy for me to transition, because it's something that I've internalized, and it's powerful. It's the things that are taught. It teaches you how to deal with emotions. It teaches you how to deal with, if I'm with a client and they say something that I don't agree with, or it upsets me,
sure,
or, emotions can get involved, especially with large transactions. It has allowed me as a business person to check my emotions, check how I respond to things, look in the mirror, pause, and, do work accordingly, right? So
make a better decision, right? Like, you're able now to where maybe things are more impulsive in the past. And look, this is not just for people with addiction, right? Impulse control is a huge problem for a lot of people, including myself, who I would consider myself to be in recovery. But that being said, I still struggle with that. So I think the all of what you've gone through has really set you up in a lot of ways. I think you're right. Those skills are perfect. But before we get to the real estate, I want to go back, because you did something that I think is really, really difficult, but also awesome, which is, you then were like, okay, you're trying to pull yourself out of maybe some old habits, and some maybe people that weren't working with your best interest in mind. And then you started to work at Kirby, right? For Kirby Vacuums.
Yeah. So what led to that is basically from Newman, it went downhill from there. And my mother sold the house that she had paid cash for. And at the time, again, I was raised, I had things, I had to learn responsibility. I had to learn how to be an adult at a late age. And so I didn't, have a job. I didn't, my mom basically took care of me, right?
Sure.
After high school, after I didn't seek it, because I didn't need to, frankly, right? It was all taken care of. And so eventually, when she sold the house, we were supposed to buy another house with that money, and we just kind of went from hotel to hotel. We moved from Sonora, California to Modesto to Turlock. We stayed at a truck stop. I mean, that was the life we lived for about 2 years. Just the craziness, you know,
That's a
addiction
very, very
involved.
difficult life.
It was until eventually we blew through the entire net profit of what she got from the home.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we were just kind of living on our SSI checks, and till eventually we were sleeping in the car at times, and ended up in Tracy, California. And I had gotten a title loan against my car, and obviously didn't make the payments. And so we ended up saving up enough money to just go stay at Motel 6 to get cleaned up and everything. And we were able to purchase a couple weeks. And then the first 2 days, I heard in the morning, I hear a car alarm going off. Wah, wah, wah. So I come running out, and it's my car on a tow truck.
Yeah.
Being taken off because I didn't make the payments, and I was on some red flag system. And that's how I ended up in Tracy, California, by the way, is my car got towed, and we got left at a Motel 6. So,
Wow.
but I've never left. I've called it home. So, you know, somewhere I started and where I am now, it's kind of funny, but, we stayed in Motel 6 for a while, till eventually we got kicked out of there, couldn't afford it until, we were both homeless, and, went, and found a place behind a CVS store, stayed there. After about 2 days, my mom left and said she was going to be right back. She didn't come back. So, you know, I'm left, you know, on my own. Everything I own's on my back. I'm sleeping in a cardboard box. I found a big refrigerator box that fortunately, I could fit in. I was also 260 pounds at the time, which was a big, you know, big amount, about 180 now. And, you know, I just thought I lost everything. I had to find the only payphone I feel like existed in the world at the time. Fortunately, it was close by, and, you know, called everybody in my family that normally I could call, and would get me out of it. Right.
Sure.
Because that was a story of my life, is I could always figure a way to either manipulate a situation or get my way out. And this was the first time in my life where the people I called, my grandparents, everybody said, sorry, go to Salvation Army. Go. We're not helping you anymore. You've burned all your bridges. And that was the starting point for me of what turned my life around. My mom didn't want anything to do with me. She left, did her own thing. And I ended up finding a spot on the side of the freeway. And actually, like, as I'm looking at this right now, I have a picture of myself homeless. I keep it in front of me in my office every single day, just as a reminder. And I found a place on the side of the freeway, stayed there. It was like a little igloo. Fortunately, it was like rainproof because it was raining a lot. And I would go hold a sign. I found a sign that some other homeless guy left. And it was like pre-written, didn't even really make sense what it was said on it, but it got the point across. Hey, I'm homeless, I'm hungry, help me. And I would go hold it on the corner, and people would give me food, people would give me money. And, you know, I would go just try to not figure out a way to numb, not dealing with today, not dealing with where I'm at in life, not dealing with what happened, any way that I can numb that and just survive. That's what I did, and did that for a while, a couple months, and until eventually somebody pulled over and talked to me, and they just talked. That's it. Give me their time. Even took a picture of me. That's the picture I have up there today. It was the first time, and then he left. And then a couple days later, after I held the sign on the corner, I would head over to I was heading to the liquor store, go get some food, whatever, I could do. And then that way I could just go back. And then the gentleman saw me, and he pulled over. He said, hop in, you want to get something to eat? Where do you want to go? And I'm like, I'm going to KFC. I love KFC, man. Yeah, that was some good stuff. and he took me and he got me something to eat. And eventually he got me into he never gave me a dime. All he did was either pay for, maybe food. He maybe got me a couple packs of cigarettes at the time when I smoked.
Sure.
And that was it. He just gave me his time. That's it. He didn't say, hey, Darrin, here's $20. Good luck. Right. Which it's very easy to do. Right. And we think we're doing good by giving people money. But in my case, that would have only been enabling me.
Sure.
If he would have gave me money. And
he also gave you, I'm sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No.
I imagine that life is incredibly lonely as well. So you
Yeah.
now have, because, you just said everyone in the family said, hey, we gotta cut you loose right now because we can't really help you. And then this stranger comes around and says, hey, I think you're just fine. I want to be part of your life, whether it's in a long-term capacity or a short-term capacity, but just even somebody reaching out. Was that hard for you to even trust somebody like that? Or were you able to sort of, embrace? Because a lot of times I find that, people who are on their own, there's obviously a lot of mistrust because there's a lot of dangerous people out there.
Right. Yeah. And, and unfortunately, a lot of the people that I met out there too, I think after a period of time, you get used to being out there. I think I was fortunate enough to only be out there for, a few months. But these people who aren't as fortunate as I was, it just becomes their new normal. So they're like, they're less likely to want to change because they've gotten used to that lifestyle. Sure. And, I think where I was at is I was so lonely, so beaten down. They call it the gift of desperation.
Yes.
And that's where I was at. And I think fortunately, God put somebody in my life at the perfect time when I was ready, when I was willing, and when I was ready to, like you mentioned earlier, surrender, and I did. I had an option that day when they pulled over to hop in the truck or to continue to the liquor store,
Sure.
And fortunately I jumped in, and that's when my life changed. Just making that one decision, that one decision, and that is when my life changed, is that day.
And so how did you get to it? Only because I just find this so inspiring. So you're at a particularly low moment. You found the strength somehow to make the healthy decision of, hey, this person wants to help. I'm gonna trust. And then how did things start to turn around for you?
Well, I instantly was put in a men's home.
Sure.
At that point, when I it was shared that I was, willing and put somewhere, I had help for the first 2 months, as far as, rent, and that was it. But it taught me structure. It taught, like I mentioned, for me, I was not taught, responsibility, or I wasn't, there was no reason, because everything was typically either, handed to me. I didn't have like a whole lot in my childhood, but I had more than most. And my mother made sure that she did the best she could, but she was more of a friend than a parent. And that was what did me wrong.
Sure.
And affected me later on in life. So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. And then, so you're in the men's home, and then they say, hey, it's like, we're going to help you for a little while, but you need to find employment. You need to start working,
exactly.
Contributing to society, being a good citizen. And you started, was Kirby your first sort of, and by the way, let's tell everybody what Kirby is, because I think most of our audience isn't familiar. I have just nothing but respect for people who attempt the Kirby job, because I think, especially in this day and age, particularly difficult. So can you talk a little bit about what Kirby vacuum salespeople are like, or what they have to do. And again,
absolutely.
I think this is, 40 years ago, we'd be like, oh yeah, people go door to door, like not that big of a deal. Today, that is not common. So I would love to hear this, because I think people will be like, whoa.
Yeah. So I owe a lot to Kirby. In fact, I owe everything to Kirby, because that's what opened the door for me into sales.
Yeah.
And I was on the internet, like you said, got into the place, and they kind of are like, all right, after 30 days, you need to start getting a job. So I looked on Craigslist and I saw this ad, hey, open interviews, come on down. Right. They try to rally up, and so I'm like, hey, perfect. Here's an opportunity. I was excited. When you go from a place of where you've lost everything, like they call it a pink cloud you're on. And I just was so happy to just be free. I had been without any substance or anything like that for a while. So it's like it's almost like you're free of your chains, and like anything's possible. So I didn't care that, there was no guaranteed pay. I didn't care that, I just was like, hey, it's a job, there's opportunity, let's go. So went there, interviewed, they hired me. Right. And what Kirby Vacuums is basically, you go door to door. They only sell vacuums door to door. If you buy something that's from somewhere else, it's more than likely a pre-owned vacuum or pre-owned, but brand new out of the box, they only sell door to door.
And they're not inexpensive. These are nice, very high end vacuums, and just going door to door. Tell me what that experience was like.
Yeah, so it's nerve wracking. I mean, even today when I'm knocking on doors, I use the same Kirby script, that I do. Hey, don't worry, I'm not here to change your religion, guys. Like, how's it going? Like, all these skills and things like that that I've learned in Kirby from getting doors slammed in your face, I still use today. And it's nerve wracking. They take you in a van, pile you in, say, hey, you two, you go canvas this neighborhood, you go out, you walk with a flyer, and you try to set up appointments for people, and you say, hey, we'd like to come in and do one area rug, one room free of charge, to show you how this vacuum works. And you go in, they say yes, and you go in and I was 260 pounds, by the way, at this time. And I sold in about 4 months, I sold about 12 vacuums. And is
that a lot, or is that not a lot? I don't even know.
No, that's a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot.
These are $3,500 vacuums.
Yeah. They're not cheap.
And they're not cheap, but they do everything. I mean, I was washing people's windows with these things. You could do the carpets, hardwood floors, everything. Just the vacuum itself is so powerful. I mean, you would vacuum a rug and it almost looked like it was shampooed, because it sucked so much dirt out from even underneath the carpet. I mean, I could go, the Kirby salesman starting to come out here. So be careful,
If you want to buy a Kirby, we have a special code for our podcast listeners. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh no, you can't, because it has to be door to door. So we can't have a code.
Right.
And by the way, I want to make a point for those of us that are familiar with Dog the Bounty Hunter. That's where he, when he was in prison for a murder charge, and he was released, and that's how he got his life back, and ultimately became, now he's more of a celebrity, but when he was starting out, he became Kirby's, I think I have this right, they're basically one of their top salespeople in the country.
Wow.
So I don't know if but for anyone, but anyway, he's got a particularly a very difficult past story as well. But anyway, so you started having success with Kirby, which, by the way, not the easiest sales job, probably about the hardest sales job that exists.
Yeah.
And so then what happened?
Yeah. So then it came down to a bad month where I don't want to say anything bad. But in my experience, let's just say me and my manager or the owner of that Kirby franchise just didn't see eye to eye on some things. There were some unfair things going on, and I couldn't pay my rent. Is really what it came down to. So I had knocked on several doors, tried to get some appointments to general managers of car dealerships and, sales managers. And about 3 or 4 different people told me, dude, you should drop the vacuum thing and go get into car sales. And after hearing that so many times and then finally getting to where I couldn't pay rent doing this anymore, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hit every car dealership in Tracy until one of them hires me. And I picked a day and I said, I'm going to start at Tracy Ford at the corner. I'm going to walk in and I'm going to go to Honda, Volkswagen.
Sure.
I'm walking in and one of these people is hiring me today. I'm going to start at the end and work my way back. So I walked into Tracy Ford, went to the manager, and he hired me on the spot. And
wow.
And I was there for about 5 years, for about 4 years. Yeah. And, worked my way up. And that's really what really helped me, as I worked my way up in the car business, I started seeing, my effort pay off. I could, my credit started getting better, all these little things that, I never really knew or took for granted, that mattered so much. I was able to, get out of the mids place, get my own little spot. And it was really a blessing for me at the time. I moved up to like a manager role in the dealership and from there, bought a brand new car and, all these little things that they call them the promises. Right. And it's just, they told me when I first kind of came in, to make a list of everything you want in the next 5 years. And I made a list and they said, the reason we want you to do that is because if you do that and you continue on the path you're on, you're going to short yourself. And I did that. And about a year and a half ago, I came across this list I made.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and everything was checked off and more. Everything I made, and that was like a dream list. Like, I'm like, there's no way it's going to take forever. And it was just so inspiring to see that, because it really is the truth, the sky's the limit. And I went from the car business and, working my ass off, making, I feel like as much as I could make without moving up to like a general sales manager position or finance. And I feel like that would have kind of made me just basically live at the dealership because I already was working 6 days a week, practically, 9-10 hours a day. So the only thing I could do to make more money at the time was give more time. And so that's kind of what got me into real estate is I saw real estate as something that the sky's the limit, and whatever amount of effort you put into it, that's what you'll get in return. And it's your own business. It's something that you can be proud of. You're not working for somebody else to make them successful. It's more risk, nothing's guaranteed, but I felt that betting on myself was a great investment because I knew in my heart that I would work my ass off and I believed I would make it work. I believed in my heart that no matter what, that's the mindset I had going in to real estate. I feel like any new agent needs to have that mindset, especially if you're leaving a full-time job that pays you $100,000 a year and going into this field that you have no experience in, then there's nothing guaranteed, That took a lot for me, but I did it because I believed I could. And it was the best decision I ever made. Wow. One of the best decisions, I should say.
Yeah, well, it certainly is incredible that, so many people who start out on the path that you were on based on, hey, that's what you knew growing up. And of course, you know what you know, and to be able to sort of get out of the cycle of that is tremendously difficult and also rare, sadly rare. But obviously the story has a wonderful ending. And here you are today. And not only are you a practicing agent, a successful agent, you were just named one of National Association of Realtors 30 under 30, right in the nick of time because you're almost 30.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, or did you already did you just recently turn 30? But before?
Yeah, I recently turned 30. So the cutoff is, I want to say, I think it's June 1st. And it's weird how it works. It's kind of like halfway. So anybody that has a birthday, even though they're still 29, if they have a birthday before June 1st, unfortunately, their last opportunity was the year before to apply. So, and my birthday is on the 15th of June. So I just made the cutoff. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, yeah. So it was fortunate, but yeah, now I'm the big 3-0, and, you know, I feel like, you know, my life is it's truly a blessing today. And I feel like if I've gotten this amount of fulfillment and this amount of this many blessings in this two and a little less than 2.5 years in real estate, I can just imagine you know, where my life will be in my 30s. So I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
I think I'm curious because for those of us that are versed in anything related to recovery or addiction, we know that surrender, you know, is really the cornerstone or the very first part of a recovery process. And the reason why is because our own efforts, we come to a place where people who struggle with addiction go, oh, I can't actually do this. I'm not able, I can't actually live the life I want. I'm not in control. And most people never have that experience, right? Most people don't get to a place where they're out of control enough to where they have to surrender. And I'm curious, because you have surrendered many times in your life in really extreme ways, how important that sort of skill is in helping you be successful at real estate, right? Like the surrendering skill, I think I'm almost wondering if that's maybe the most important part of who you are, because it enables you to take your ego and your identity out of a problem and just go, maybe there's a solution here and I just have to find somebody that does. I'm curious how important surrender is for you.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, just you bringing it up, you probably know how important that is, because it's like, it's instrumental to being successful. I think, you know, you have to detach from the outcome. You have to, because then what happens is, if I'm attached to, especially something as like money, right? If I'm doing this for money, like, yeah, we want to do it for money and grow, but there's got to be something more than that, right? And if I go into a listing appointment and I'm like, oh, I got to pay my bills and I need this listing and I need this, they're gonna sense that. They're gonna sense that I'm trying to sell out of desperation, and now I'm cutting my commission. Now you know, there's no value there, right? Like, I wouldn't want a realtor like that, right? So for me, it's just detaching from the outcome. Now, fortunately, I've had a lot, and I have lost everything more than once.
Yeah.
So that's why, for me, like, the pain and things that I've gone through, I think it's, I don't want to say easier for me, but it's just because I know that if I lost everything today, I would be fine. I could rebuild and start something new, right? But I think you go ahead. Sorry.
No, you know what's amazing, and I'm sorry to interject, but I think this is a good gut check for a lot of our audience, because I've dealt with a few issues that you have, but a lot of issues you have experienced that I have not, and I am not confident that if I lost everything, it would be easy to rebuild. I'd have a lot of help, and I think people would help me, but as far as me on my own, I don't know that I could say I'm confident, but I've never had to do it. And I've never been in that position. And I think that has obviously helped. Obviously, nobody wants to have to go through that, but boy, to know that if it all went away tomorrow, if, you know, for whatever reason you had to start over again, to just know that I'd figure it out, and to be confident because you've actually done it more than once is really a tremendous skill that propels people who have, who might be at the bottom, who are really struggling, to get to a more elevated position. So I am really, because I was thinking about that as you were saying that. I was like, oh yeah, me too. And then I went, no, would I really be okay? No, I probably wouldn't. It would, I'd have to go through losing everything to really then develop certain skills. So I hope to God that I don't ever have to, but
right.
but that gift of desperation, that phrase that you said earlier, the gift of desperation it's a double-edged gift, double-edged sword gift, but it does actually provide freedom, because you're like, I can do this. It's not easy, but I can do it. And
Right.
and knowing that, I think a lot, like you talked about this with getting a job as in car sales. You're like, I'm going to get a job. Someone's going to hire me because I'm going to go in there and say, you really should hire me. I'm really going, I did really well with vacuums. I know how to do this. I can do this. Someone's going to give me a job. I never have thought that way about myself. And I think that is an incredible thing that, I'm going to figure this out. I can figure this out. And that's amazing. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take over there, but just
No,
really
I
impressed.
appreciate that. One thing I do want to make very clear for me and everyone who's listening is I do not believe that I could have done any of this on my own, right? I know for a fact that the only reason that I have the life I have today is because I surrounded myself with individuals who were willing to help me and were willing to show me a way. One person that told me this great analogy, it's kind of like if you're trying to climb Mount Everest. If I were to climb Mount Everest by myself, I probably wouldn't make it back. But if I went,
you die. Yeah.
I'd die.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be frozen up there, and but the chances of me making it back with a guide, somebody who has been to the top multiple times, who has found a solution, who knows the path, knows the way, my chances of surviving and getting to the top are a hell of a lot better, and that for me, the only reason I feel like I would be able to come out after losing everything is because I would find the right people to be around. I would seek those people out who have also lost everything before and came back, and just follow what they've done. And I think the only thing that I do have is that belief that it's possible, like you mentioned with the car dealership, I believed that it was possible and I can do it. I just needed help to figure out a way to do it. And I truly believe that me on my own, I am nothing, but me as with somebody else and with a unit and with a team and with people, we can achieve impossible things. And I truly believe that.
Yeah. It's like that 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing. It's like, it really is, the sum is greater than the parts, right? It really, having, I've always thought, like, not always, it took me till I was in my 30s to realize, I need a council of people in my life who will tell me the truth, who will actually be there to say, hey man, you're going a little nutty about this thing, or we see you heading in this direction, which maybe isn't so great. But also people that are like, we believe in you, and we have skills that, and just having people around who, and the good news is, there are tons of people who are willing to help. The hardest part isn't finding those people. I think for me, it's about being willing to ask, because it is hard to ask, whether you're a real estate agent and you're brand new and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get clients. It's like, go talk to, this whole podcast started because I thought, wouldn't it be cool that like, if we could get a list of all these stories of top producers and how they made it. Like, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to be talking to top producers. I assumed somebody else had already done this. And I was like, I'll just find the podcast that already exists and I'll just give it to our agents because they want to hear from these top producers. And then I went, nobody's done that. And I went, oh, okay, well, we should accumulate these stories. But it's all because, people who have risen above are, in my experience, are very willing to tell their story and help others. And if you can find people that are willing to help you, That's great, but you have to go first. You have to be willing to ask for help, right? And that's probably not something you struggle with as much as maybe other people who haven't been as desperate at times. So let's talk about, you're starting in real estate. How did you start your business? I mean, you don't have the traditional background of like, well, I don't know actually. So did you have a sphere of influence when you started, or was it like, I'm starting a whole new thing and I'm starting over from scratch?
I mean, a little bit of both. The sphere I've created from car sales and doing that. I was kind of doing a lot of social media with car sales as well. So I think that helped me, because I would have people the same way they reach out to me for houses. It was the same thing with cars too. And so I would establish that branding, as a car salesman. So that transition was really weird, but I think I made the transition very well, because I went from being that car guy to real estate, and I announced it to I like Tony Robbins say, I burned the boats to the island.
Right. Right. So I cut off all other options. I burned the bridge behind me, not burn bridge in a negative way. I burned the lifeboat. So this is all I got. I'm going to make
exactly. I announced it to the world. I am leaving the car business. Thank you, Ford, all of that. So that way I have some sort of accountability when things get rough. So there's no turning back. So again, that just, it's going to work mindset, I'm going to make this happen. And it's so powerful. Like, I think back to that mindset, it's a little, sometimes it can be difficult to have that same mindset, especially having a little bit more time in the business and just continuing to have it. I don't know if that's even sustainable, right? But I think you can get it in waves. But at that time, I had that mindset, and that's what I needed, especially breaking off into real estate. And I joined this little brokerage, local brokerage, that it was like a referral to me and people that I trusted. And I just went in there, and I had one guy, he fortunately took me under his wing, and he really helped me. He would do open houses with me. Whenever I would have a question, I would reach out to him and he would answer them for me. I felt like I was pretty resourceful, fortunately. So I would try my best to not be needy for things. And if I could figure out a way to find it out myself, I would. That's fortunately what the internet's for, right? And Google. And just asking people too, asking other people. So it took me 2 months to do my first deal.
Which, by the way, 2 months is pretty short time frame for somebody's first transaction as a real estate agent. That sounds like an eternity for those of us in the, but we can, everyone listening can remember, doing a deal in your first couple months is not very common. But cheers to you for even getting that accomplished,
Yeah. And that's another thing too about mindset, because if there's any new agents that are listening, you're going to be told that it may take 6 months to a year for your first home. You're going to be told that. And I would hear people say that. And in my head, I would tell myself, you know what, maybe for you,
right, but
not for me. I'm going to make this work. Right. Yeah. And I think if you just, again, that belief system, if you have that belief system, and just continue to believe and stay consistent with your activities, just like prospecting, just like working every day, treating it like a business. Real estate's one of those things where you put in the work today and you get the results a month or two, at the soonest. Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say it could be a year's.
Yeah, it could be a year. Yeah, and more than likely it's going to be that long, right? But you have to have the mindset that what you're doing today is going to benefit you later on, right? It's not going to be quick.
And that's the thing too. And I hope I'm glad you sort of challenged me a little bit on that. And I appreciate that, because it is impressive to do a deal within your first 2 months, but it's not unheard of and it's absolutely doable. It's just not as common, but also most people don't have as much desperation to say, I got to pay my bills. I got to make something work. It's amazing. Again, back to this gift of desperation. But what happens is by putting the blinders on and realizing, okay, most of my efforts today in real estate won't manifest to actual income, maybe for a year, maybe 6 months, a year, whatever the time sales cycle is in your particular market. But you also end up making some quick luck along the way, right? Like
exactly.
It ends up like lucky things start to happen to people who are crazy disciplined. So it's not just like, I mean, look, we could say not a whole lot of luck fell your way, or we could say you had a lot of luck fall your way at the right times. Either way, you have always been on your way up, a very disciplined person. You've always sort of made your own luck. It sounds like going from car dealer to car dealer is not fun, and basically begging for a job. And I don't mean begging in a bad way, but being like, I got to get a job. That is most people would never do that. Most people won't go to 10 different dealerships. Now you got lucky on the first one in a sense, but you would have kept going until someone said yes anyway. So the reality of it is you could say, oh, it was lucky it was the first one. Well, yeah, but it might have been the third one or the fourth one or the 10th one. You would have still got a job. Because, well, or maybe you wouldn't have, and then you would have pivoted to something else. But the point is you were convinced that there was a way out, and all you had to do was put the blinders on and just go to work, essentially. And someone's always going to give somebody a chance who has that mentality. Like it's really kind of a boss's dream hire. Somebody comes in and says, I have to work here. I need to work here. I want to work here. Like that attitude. And I imagine that's probably endeared you to your clients, because as you show, or you didn't show, but you have that picture of, hey, here's a time when I didn't have anything much or much of anything, or maybe really anything. I have that picture I remember what it was like. And not that there's anything wrong with going through that experience. Of course, it's brought you to where you are today. But it's nice to sort of say, oh, at one point that was my reality. Today I have a different reality. And there's been a lot of people helping me along the way, but it's really been a lot of effort on your end. So let's talk about the future. So you started in real estate. You did your first deal within a couple of months, and then how did things progress from there?
So from there, I always had at least one pending, which was nice.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was nice. And a lot of my business has come from my sphere, from referral partners, from those sorts of relationships that I nurture and have developed a system around that. And that's really where all of my business came my first year. And it was a blessing. I made more my first year than I did at my car sales job, where I was selling 30 cars a month, which is pretty good in the industry. Yeah. And just crushing it. And here in real estate, working less, in a sense, like compared to how I was working in the car business, right? Where you're clocked in, you're at the dealership, right? And that's also one thing, is like, I just thought, like, if I was able to take that same mentality that I had in the car business and apply it to real estate in my business, which, let's face it, I don't think any real estate agent really does, but the ones that do are super successful. And that's what I try to do, and have a schedule, just have a system and treat it like a business. Just because I get to dictate my own schedule does not mean I shouldn't treat it like a business. And that's what I'm starting to learn, is just trying to have some structure and things like that, instead of treating it just like a lot of agents treat it just as like a, hey, I'm a realtor, treating it more like this is my business. This is, I need to have systems in place. I need to have a schedule. I add admins, transaction coordinators, having team members, just having that growth mindset. And that's kind of where I am today, is starting that process with that. Trying to have these systems, right? A guy that was living in a cardboard box trying to develop systems for a real estate business. Let me tell you, it is not easy. So I fail more than succeed, but I learn, and I learn new things every day, and I invest in coaching. I invest a lot in real estate coaching and other things because I know the value. And coaching is one of the things that I invested in right off the bat when I first started. And if you have the funds to do it, I would 100% recommend any new agent, and quite frankly, anybody, whether you've been in the business for 30 years, to invest in coaching. Because that, for me, is you again, you have to have a guide to climb Everest, and accountability as well.
Yeah, we all need Sherpas to help us kind of lead the path, guide the way, keep us on the path too. And they always say, what it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to run a business. I mean, it just does. And boy, aren't we so lucky that we live in a time now where we can get help globally from people that we wouldn't have had access to 20 years ago. That just wasn't a thing. You couldn't hire a virtual assistant 20 years ago. They didn't exist. Or if they did, I didn't have access to them. And now we can get help from people all over the globe who can help us for reasonable cost. And you're helping them by providing them income. They're helping you by helping run your business. I'm always shocked that individual practitioner agents, a lot of them don't think to employ somebody, even if it's just somebody to help plan your day or somebody to help structure. So you're now building these systems, and I'm curious now as the market's shifting. So I want to sort of talk about what's going on currently in the real estate industry, because you're still relatively young as an agent. Also your age, you're a younger guy. Now things are starting to shift, right? We're seeing a slowdown. We're seeing interest rates rise. We're seeing, of course, inventories has been challenging for the last couple of years, and less buyers are now flooding the market because rates have basically doubled, more than doubled in some cases. So how are you adjusting to that? Has that hit you yet? Have things changed for your business? Just curious on what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I am very happy the market's shifting. I think we needed to slow down. Every buyer that I have right now, it's like first offers accepted, which is nice. You can keep contingencies. We're asking for closing credits. We're negotiating price. Like, I'm like, wow, you have new builders now, like raising the commissions they're buying or they're paying out to realtors, like, and sometimes, quite frankly, I'm like, hey, F you guys,
Yeah,
now,
I just closed a deal with you a month ago. Where's that bonus for me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I actually like it. And as far as the listing side goes, I think it is who the sellers work with matters more than ever right now. And all the agents who stopped doing the marketing and the activities that got results when you needed to market a house, you couldn't just stick it in the MLS and put a for sale sign and say, I sold it for $300,000 over asking price, right? I'm the best realtor out there. I hate those posts. I absolutely hate them because it's like, dude, come on. Like, what did you put a for sale sign in lawn? And granted, we all got to market ourselves, and I get that. But, as an agent to agent perspective, it's like, come on, guys, so the people I think that are getting hit and doing price reductions and all those things, I think are people that may need to look at what type of marketing and strategies they're doing on their listings. You know, are they going door to door? Like, I'll give you an example. Right after this, I'm heading to Sacramento to do door knocking, to invite everybody out to our open house this weekend. Right.
Okay. Let's pause real quick, because this is a really nice thing. Door knocking for open houses. It's so funny you mentioned this. I did an interview 4 or 5 years ago with a guy named Nico Apostle. So if anyone else would go back, look for just search on our website for Apostle, just like Apostle from the Bible, same spelling. And he did this, and he's the only other person. And I actually just saw him a few days ago because he's a local guy here. And I was like, I still tell people about your door knocking open house thing, and I've yet. So you're like the first person in 4 or 5 years to talk about it. So let's talk about what this is. Tell me about the strategy for getting people to show up to open houses.
Yeah. So, you pick, 50, I would say 50. I used to do 100, but it was just too much, because when you door knock, it takes a little bit more time. If you're just dropping off flyers, that's one thing, but I like to go up to the door because you have a conversation. And when you talk about like cold calling and making phone calls, the whole goal of all of that is to get face to face with the client, right? That is the only goal. So imagine you have a listing, you actually have a reason to talk to somebody, and I'm not asking anything from you. I'm simply inviting you to check out your neighbor's house, right?
Which everybody wants to do just out of their own curiosity.
Out of curiosity, exactly. So like, what better way to leverage something when I'm not asking you to buy or sell anything, right? I'm inviting you, just saying, hey, come on down. We want to get your take on, the house. Maybe if you can give us some feedback, we'd love for you to come over. We got some wine, we got some, hors d'oeuvres. Just come down, and check it out. And hey, if you happen to know anybody that's looking to move into this neighborhood, a family, a friend, we'd love to maybe get in touch with them. Whatever you want to say to try to convert, right? But yeah, you go up to the door, if it's that specific neighborhood, you knock, they answer, and you just simply, here you go. It's Kirby 101 for me, right?
I was going to say, this is Kirby. Yeah. This is Kirby.
You have your flyers in your hand, and the first thing you do when they open the door is you just stick your hand out and you hand them the flyer. Hey, guy, and smile. You always smile, right? Yeah. That's the first impression. Big smile. Hey, guys, and just that. And again, back to the whole cold calling and just doing phone calls in general. The whole point is to be face to face. All I've done is walk. Didn't cost me $10,000 for a lead. Nothing. I literally walked over to this person's house, who is a potential lead, and I gave them something of value, and I'm now creating a conversation with them. And if I track my numbers, I'll know that if I talk to 10 people that I've knocked on their door, I'll probably get, 2 or 3 emails and phone numbers and one potential appointment to come back and talk about potentially selling their house. Right.
So are those numbers about right? So maybe knocking on 50 gets you about 10 conversations, which gets you 2 or 3 emails, which maybe nets you 1 customer.
One opportunity. Right.
One opportunity.
Yeah.
So
whether it's a buying or selling, sure, it's just an appointment, lead generation, right? And that all was free, so
it's free, and it's free, and it just takes time, and it takes willingness, and it takes a little bit of getting over the lump in your throat to knock on a door of a stranger. Yeah. I always have tried to tell our agents, it's not creepy if you're not a creep.
Exactly.
If you're a nice, normal human, and again, women have a different, and I'm not here to say it's equal for men and women. Obviously, women have additional safety considerations, and maybe this wouldn't necessarily be something a woman may want to do just for safety's sake. But and I'm not here to say, to get into a gender conversation, but certainly, think about safety. But at this, for doing that, I'm curious. Well, this is a question that I think will better answer this. How many other agents in your market are you aware of that door knock for open houses like you do?
Outside of my brokerage, zero.
Exactly.
I think the only reason I hear some of the people in my brokerage do it is because we have, meetings every week and people share what works for them. So you hear it more often than none. Now, doing it and being consistent with it, I think are two different things.
Yeah.
They may do it for one open house and take a couple Facebook photos and say, hey, I did it. Which I'm totally guilty of too. I'm not any, consistency. That's the hardest thing.
Sure.
But I find myself being able to be aware of that, fortunately, and really trying to look in the mirror and seeing, okay, I need to be consistent with this. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So there's definitely, I think if more people did it and did it consistently, they would see results no matter what you do, right?
Right.
As you
It
just
doesn't
gotta
have to be
pick
door
something.
knocking. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I love that particular one because it's got that old school kind of like, I don't really want to do it. It's way harder than picking up a phone. Phones are way harder than reaching out on social media, and it's not always that the hardest activity is the best activity. But this particular activity I love because it's incredibly humbling. It's not an ego-based thing, right? You can't you're not showing up like, hey, look at how cool I am. It's a very humbling thing to have. Most people go, I don't really want somebody knocking on my door. So you do have to go through a lot of people maybe looking through the windows, going,
Yeah.
who is that guy? What does he want? And obviously you're a professional person. So you have, how to dress and how to present yourself. But I think it is a wonderful experience. And by the way, for those of you who say open houses don't work, do this. So how do you do it when you go? Do you do it a couple days before? Do you do it the morning of? When do you do the door knocking for open houses?
Yeah, so I typically do it a couple days before. I know some people like to do it the weekend before, but I like to be fresh,
Yeah,
fresh in people's minds because chances are that paper I hand them is going to go straight from their hand to the trash can.
totally,
Right? So
totally.
all
Of
I want them to
course.
see is my name in your name should be the biggest thing on there other than like open house.
Right.
So that way, at least if on their way
As
to the
it's on
trash
its way
can,
to the
yeah,
garbage, they see your name.
they see your
Yeah,
name. Exactly. So you're branding
yeah.
yourself and, and then just, open house invite. Um,
I,
so
I love it, and I didn't mean to get stuck on this, but I think this tip alone is so important. And it doesn't mean you have to go door to door for your open houses, but if you're going to all the effort to put an open house together, and I'm not saying Darrin, I'm talking to our audience directly, go the additional extra step and canvass the neighborhood, really politely knock on the door, say, hey, just so you know, I'm listing a home down the street, thought you might be interested in checking it out. Here's a little bit more about the property. We'd love to have you over just to come see the property, maybe give us some feedback. That would be awesome. It will net you people showing up. So if you're somebody who says open houses don't work, I only want to hear open houses don't work because I also knocked on 100 doors and still nobody. Then you can tell me open houses don't work.
right.
Darrin's here to tell you open houses work, but you have to probably put maybe more. Sometimes you have to put more effort in than just throwing it up on the MLS and saying, come check out the open house.
Right. And the only reason for me that I'm doing an open house is because with a listing you can leverage.
Yeah.
There's ways you can leverage buyers listings too, but it's more like direct mail and stuff like that. I don't think it's as effective. A listing you can really leverage, and the open house it's not going to sell. It's not going to sell the house,
Right.
right? The whole
Unless
point.
you're very lucky.
Yeah, unless you're very lucky, you get somebody that walks in and sees it, and and that happens from time to time. But regardless, if they really wanted to see it, they'll call their agent and have them show it to them. So really, all the open house it's to generate you more business. That's it. You're leveraging one opportunity and making three more. I can't tell you how many buyers I had come in that are unrepresented and do an open house, where not only did I get them in contract on the house I was selling, but they had to sell a house too. So it's 3 deals in one. That happened twice to me last year, 6 deals. just
Amazing.
from one open house, right? And so, little things like that. Now, it doesn't happen every time, right? But again, it's consistency. So that's what I believe. Again, belief. Like, I know if I stay consistent, do I get deterred, and do I get down like, oh, this isn't working, man, let me try something else? Yeah, 100%. I get shiny object syndrome, right?
Oh, me too. Sure.
Where,
That's
oh,
going to fix everything. If I just
yeah,
had that, that's what
yeah,
I need. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Let me listen to this guy and do this, and I'll try this for 2 weeks and I don't get results, so now I'm going to try this. You can't, you have to be consistent no matter what you do. And then after doing it for 6 months, 3-4 months, whatever it is, everything's different. Then make your judgment. Maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I need to try something different, or my approach is wrong, or it's, for me, it's like always looking within. What can I do differently? Not pointing the finger. That's the one thing, like, just for my personal life too. Once I stopped pointing at everybody else and I started pointing the finger to me and seeing what I need to do better, what I need to change, what I can do, then I started letting everybody else, or not letting everybody else, control my destiny, and I started taking responsibility and allowing me to control my life, and me to control where I want to end up, right? Because I can change my actions, but I can't change yours. I can't change the brokerage. I can't change anything. So I can't blame it on the brokerage. I can't blame it on the
Market
client, the
conditions.
market conditions. I can't, all I can do is adjust, right? I think this market, going kind of back to your question about the market, I think this market it's going to show the true professionals and the amateurs and the people who do this as a side business, or just don't treat it how they should. Don't take it seriously. Like, we're dealing with people's largest assets. Like, these are people's lives. I have clients crying to me sometimes because of how stressful the process can be. And it's like, I want to make it so smooth for them that I don't have to hear one person ever tear up. That's where I'm like, how can I make this escrow, or this selling or buying, how can I make this process just so smooth for my clients, to where all they have to do is worry about packing, right?
It's funny. I absolutely could not agree. I went through this process a year ago. I bought a primary residence. Was not my first time buying a home, but it was my first time in a while buying a home. And I also work in real estate, and we have like almost 800 agents here. So you would think that I would be like I'm sort of in the industry, and I'm kind of like, shouldn't be that emotional about it. And thank God I had people to help me through my own emotional storms of my own transaction, which was pretty normal. And there wasn't even any major hiccups. And I thought, I sort of know more than the average person I'm not a practicing agent, so I don't know as much as you, but I know enough. We have enough agents here that I sort of feel like I have a general idea of how it all works. But it was so incredibly stressful. So I was like, oh, I forgot how it feels. And you're so right that having the job of the realtor, at least for me, was keep DJ calm. And my boss was the guy who was keeping me calm. He was the one where I went, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. This is all freaking me out. And then, and I'm not somebody who doesn't handle things well, I think, but even for somebody in the industry, it was crazy stressful, and it was a perfectly normal transaction. So I think you're absolutely right. And then now think about, of course, everyone else who isn't in real estate doesn't remember what it was like to buy a home, because maybe they did it 10 years ago, or they haven't ever done it. And now we're in multiple offer situations, still even. So you have a lot of stress there. So I think you're right that you making things as stress-free, of course it's still going to be stressful, is really the main benefit of working with a realtor, is having somebody say, don't worry, I will keep you up to date. I'm on it. Do you find that that's the most important part of your job, is sort of managing, being on top of it so that your clients don't, that they're able to, like you said, all they have to worry about is moving.
That's it. It's just communication too, keeping people in the loop. If there's no update, send them a text saying, hey, there's no update. Don't just not text them, right? like little things like that I've found people really appreciate. And not only that, but the service you give, like to me, I focus, the reason I give high level service like that, one, I want to take care of people, but really it's because I want people to refer me to their friends, family, people that they know because of how great of a job that I did, right? There's always some, there's a motive behind it, right? And,
Sure.
and that's the truth, because that's what I value. I want to be known as that guy that makes it smooth for people. So it's in everybody's best interest to focus on those things too. So that way you can have a very lucrative referral-based business where you're just getting referred clients left and right,
Yeah.
like that's the dream, you know?
Yeah. And it all has to do with service and discipline, right? So you have echoed that over and over and over again in the time we have. And I think it's a good place to sort of wrap up today, because
Yeah.
wow, I feel like I've just been on this emotional journey with you. I appreciate your vulnerability, your honesty, your willingness to share some of your life sort of story. And I think that it takes tremendous courage. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. So congratulations. And by the way, also, not just me recognizing it, clearly National Association of Realtors thinks you're pretty special as well, awarding you the 30 under 30, which I know many people who have received that award, and they're all amazing people. So you are now, of course, in that same rarefied air, which is, I'm sure, very humbling for you, but it is really impressive to the rest of us. So, by the way, we should also mention that Darrin is now in a place where he's like, I am now expanding. I'm building up this thing. And maybe he's going to need some additional help and wants to build out his team. So
Absolutely.
Darrin, tell us who you're looking for, because we have lots of agents who listen from all over the country. Who are you looking for? Who would be a good fit for you in your team?
Yeah. So for me, I'm looking for somebody that's coachable, that is willing to learn. I look for people that have more questions than answers, right? And that for me is somebody who would fit into the team. It's not about you selling a million houses. It's about your attitude and your work ethic and you willing. If you're putting in the work and you're showing up, that's all I would ask for.
Yeah.
And that's the only requirement for me, is being coachable, being showing up and getting into action and doing what you say you're going to do. Whatever your goals are, if you say you're going to do something and the next week we go over what you did the prior week to get there and you didn't do them, those are things that I don't like to do. Because here's the thing, I have a coach too that I am accountable to, who holds me accountable. So I expect the same thing from any of my agents, right? And that's the kind of team I'm building. It's something like that, and we grow together, and it's a culture, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'd love for anybody that just wants to have a conversation or just talk about real estate. That's in Tracy area, San Joaquin County, the Central Valley area, to reach out to me. You can look me up online, and I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you guys and see if potentially working together would make sense.
And fun fact, my middle name is Joaquin. So I am a big fan of the Joaquin Valley. But for anyone out there who is in sort of central or East Bay area, Central Valley, and just is wanting to explore other options or wanting to work with somebody like Darrin, who is really still at the beginning part of his career, and he's already just on the right track to be crushing it. He's already crushing it, but to go even beyond that, boy, I would join your team in a second if I was a practicing agent. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that as a platitude. It's the absolute truth, because I'm like, you have a track record of success and you know what it takes. So I encourage anyone out there who's interested in looking at other options to consider the DeSilva real estate team. And visit Darrin at his website, which is DeSilvaRealEstate.com. And that's DESILVA realestate.com. Also, you can find him on Instagram at Darrin, which is with an I, DARRIN _ DeSilva. Links will be in the show notes. Darrin, this is probably the longest interview I've done in 400 episodes.
Oh, wow.
But, I hope it was as interesting for our audience as it was for me. I trust that it was. I am so, I don't want to say I'm proud of you, because that suggests that I'm in a different, I see you as a peer, as an equal, for sure, and somebody to look up to and admire. So I think you're really somebody who has got amazing things ahead of him. But just the skills that you've developed, I think are the truly incredible to move from where you were to where you are now. And you can just tell that you seem to be to some level of peace and some level of normalcy, which I'm so glad that you were able to find for yourself. And not only that, but be able to thrive and build something. It's inspiring. And I hope our audience feels the same way. I know they do. Please, everyone, follow Darrin on Instagram, check him out on his website, reach out to him. If you want to explore joining his team, he'd love to talk to you as well. And he's just a good guy. So reach out to him, let him know that you appreciated him sharing on our episode. And before we go, do we just ask everybody to do one quick thing to help us grow, which is just to tell a friend. Think of one other real estate professional that could benefit from hearing this really inspiring, impressive story with Darrin's taking a selfie. So I'm waving in the background here. But I want everyone just to tell one other person about this episode. Send this to them, especially somebody who maybe is struggling right now in their business, or maybe with personal issues, and maybe they're thinking of getting out of real estate, or maybe they're thinking that this just isn't the right the best path for them right now. Maybe this would encourage them to get back on track. So shoot this over to them. And honestly, anyone really could learn a lot from Darrin, whether they're a top producer or they're struggling. So send a link out, send them over to our website, keepingitrealpod.com. We appreciate it. All of our episodes are there, or you can also find us anywhere podcasts are served. So please subscribe. And also, last thing too, please leave us a review, whatever app you might be listening to this on. Let us know what you think of the show. Your comments help us continue to improve as well. So Darrin, you've given us a tremendous amount of time, and I know you got to race out of here to get to your next appointment. I hope I didn't keep you too long. Really super proud of everything you've accomplished, and also what you were willing to share. You're a great guy, and we are super excited to see you continue to dominate the Central Valley market. So keep it up, and stay in touch with us. We're going to be checking in on you. And
absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, and congrats on the 30 under 30 thing. Huge deal there. So I hopefully you'll come down to the Orlando NAR conference this fall. If you get out there, we'll definitely have to meet up and say hi. So
absolutely.
Congrats again. Thanks for being on our show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Darrin DeSilva, everyone. Thanks for being on the show. On behalf of everyone, thanks to Darrin, and on behalf of Darrin and myself, thanks to the audience for sticking with us to the end. Tell a friend about our show, and we'll see everyone on the next episode. Thanks, Darrin.
Awesome. Thank you.